talking plenty about that game. And how about a rematch of Super Bowl 52? That's right, the Eagles and the Patriots. Philadelphia hosting Tom Brady and company. And the Patriots are coming in on the road as a favorite. Who's going to cover that game? Oh, and speaking of Super Bowl 52, what about the MVP? Nick Foles. He's not on the Eagles anymore. He is now on the Jaguars, and he's heading into Indianapolis. The Jags, a slight road dog. Who's going to cover that game? We'll tell you over the next 2 hours here on More Ways to Win. And there's one guy that's going to be helping me out today, and that is Edward Egros, live from Dallas, Texas. Ed, it's the Dave and Ed show today. You ready to do this?
Let's do this. That just means more FaceTime for us, baby.
I like a lot of these games today, so we're going to definitely have a very good time chatting, not only about the games themselves, who's going to win, but we'll talk totals, and we'll definitely dig in and talk prop bets throughout the day as well. So hope you're ready for all that.
Do it.
All right, we're going to start with the first game that we talked about, and that is the number 2 right now for the MVP in Lamar Jackson against number 3 in the MVP race, and that is Deshaun Watson, as we have the Houston Texans going into Baltimore. And this is interesting because if Baltimore wins, and later on in the day the Patriots lose to Philadelphia, Baltimore would take over the number 1 seed in the AFC. This is a very important game, clearly, for both teams. Does this line seem about right to you, having the Ravens have to lay 5?
I think the line is about right, but sort of add to the importance of this football game, Dave. You look at who makes the Super Bowl every single year, and not since 2012 has a team made the Super Bowl without having that first week bye, not having to play in that wild card weekend. So as far as that's concerned, both teams right now are fighting for that number 2 spot in the AFC. So this game is absolutely huge as far as that's concerned. But as for the game itself, really like Houston in this matchup. First off, the line has moved to half a point in Baltimore's favor. Now the Ravens are -5. But you have 2 elite quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. They can pretty much do whatever they want in a game like this. In terms of success rates, yeah, Baltimore is number 1 in rushing. They are number 6 when it comes to passing. But then you look at Houston, they're number 6 in rushing and 2nd in passing. And overall, I would say Houston has a little bit better of an offense. And then when you see these things, just so close, I look at who's going to finish drives, who's going to score when they get into the red zone. And I actually like Houston a little bit more in this situation because of Darren Fells. He's been a reliable tight end target for Deshaun Watson. So I think it's very possible Houston can win this game outright.
We're looking at the line right now. This is the first time all week that we have seen 5. It opened up at 4.5, and it has been stuck on 4.5 until this morning. It just went to 5. The total has been a little bit more moving throughout the week. Opened up at 50. Was holding at 49 for a while, and now that has gone up 2.5 points. So the late money here is coming in on the over. It's now pushed up to 51.5. Are these two quarterbacks? Remember, these guys matched up in college in a great game. What was it? I think 38-44, somewhere in that range a few years back. Is this going to be a high-scoring affair, Ed?
Well, I don't know if Clemson Louisville, had the defenses like we're going to see in this kind of football game. But still, though, I think these are two quarterbacks that can pretty much do whatever they want. And even as the total creeps up, I still like the over here. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to say something around 60 points, where you get sort of a 32-28 final. Because, again, both quarterbacks can pretty much score at will. And these are not defenses that consistently throughout the year have shown me that they're able to stop a highly potent offensive attack and dynamic offenses, mind you. Yeah, Baltimore is known for the rushing ability, but they still have good receivers like Hollywood Brown. Houston, we know what they're able to do with the passing game, with DeAndre Hopkins, with Will Fuller, with Kenny Stills, but their rushing attack is not too bad either. So I would not be surprised if this is perhaps the highest scoring game of the weekend.
All right, we'll hit a few props later on and maybe talk about buying that total up. I know you're a big fan of the alternate total. We'll see how high you think that can go. But let's move to my favorite game of the week. I was in Indiana just a few days ago. yesterday? Yeah, 2 days ago. And I picked against the Colts, so I wasn't making any friends over there. I love the Jaguars in this spot. Nick Foles coming back for the first time since week 1 when he broke his collarbone. The Jags are in last place, Ed. If they win here, they're 5-5. Tennessee's on a bye, they're 5-5. Indy would be 5-5. And then you have Houston. If they lose to Baltimore, they'd be 6-4. So if Nick Foles can get a win here, suddenly Jacksonville turns themselves into playoff mode if they can have a strong final 6 weeks of the season. I just think the Indy receivers are banged up. Hilton's going to be out. Funchess hasn't played all year. Their rookie Paris Campbell is out. You know, who's Jacoby Brissett going to be throwing to here? Mac's going to have to run it a lot. Jacksonville's done a good job shutting down the run in the last couple of games. Well, not the last game. They didn't do too well in their last game. But before that, against the Jets, shut down Bell. Against the Bengals, shut down Mixon. I like the Jags. I mean, you have a chance now to sell me on the other side, but if you do, I probably won't listen.
Well, that's fair. But I'm going to go with Jacksonville here.
Okay, good.
I think this may be another money line moneymaker here, an outright winner for the Jaguars. Now, hear me out here. It does seem like that Jacksonville and Indianapolis may be very similar teams. Both of them had to resort to backup quarterbacks for much of the year. Now Jacksonville gets Nick Foles back, though I don't know how much of an improvement that is upon Gardner Minshew. But I think it's D.D. Westbrook, perhaps the primary target for Jacksonville. I think that's going to make the biggest difference because something that we talked about on Friday was Marlon Mack is not nearly as great of a runner, doesn't have nearly as great protection and gaps in front of him with this offensive line when the passing game is simply not there because opposing defenses know exactly what they're trying to do. And yeah, Jacoby Brissett is back, and yeah, that's an improvement, and I like him overall as far as his game is concerned. Certainly a lower sack rate this year than, say, when he started a couple of years ago. But still, though, I look at Jacksonville's game and I go, D.D. Westbrook's going to make a difference. Leonard Fournette, potentially as a receiving running back, could make a bit of a difference. And I think Jacksonville's just going to be able to move the ball a little bit better, maybe be a little bit more unpredictable. So I like the Jaguars to win outright.
I do as well. I'll take that plus 130 on the money line, and I think Jacksonville goes in there and gets the job done. All right, let's talk about a team going on the road. That's the Dallas Cowboys, who honestly haven't been all that reliable as a road favorite this year. They lost to the Jets outright as a favorite on the road. They lost to the Saints outright as a favorite on the road. And now they're going to Detroit, laying, it was 6.5, it was 7, now 7.5. I'm loving that because I like the Lions in this spot.
Oh, I couldn't disagree more. I think the Cowboys are going to wallop Detroit. You remember Antoine Randall L., the former Indiana Hoosier, quarterback for them, and then became a wide receiver and a returner. For
Wasn't he on the Steelers for a little while?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Jeff Driscoll, the quarterback who's going to be starting for the Lions in place of Matt Stafford, when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals this preseason, he, of course, came in as a quarterback, and then he was converted to a wide receiver before he was dropped. And then eventually the Lions picked him up and moved him back to quarterback. So if you have a guy where one team doesn't even think he could be backup quarterback material in the Cincinnati Bengals, mind you, and then he goes to Detroit and all of a sudden he's back to playing quarterback, I don't know how reliable that is in terms of a future standpoint. So that's number one. Number two, yes, I know Jason Garrett received a lot of criticism for what happened at the end of last week's loss against the Minnesota Vikings. But first off, Minnesota is a heck of a lot better than Detroit. I think we can all agree upon that. And Jason Garrett, for the most part, is very, very reliable in these sort of gimme kinds of games. These are the types of games where Jason Garrett will go in there, coach him up, and win by 20-25. This is actually a game where I would take an alternate spread, and I would recommend the Cowboys minus 19.5 right now.
They lost to the Jets. In week 6, the 0-4 Jets. They went in there, and everybody thought they were going to blow them out, and they didn't. By the way, I was watching some tape on Driscoll going back to his Florida days. This guy can run a little bit. I think he can scramble. I think he's going to make some things happen with his feet, and he's going to put the ball in the air. Hey, look, no Stafford, but still some very good receivers on that Detroit side of the ball. I'm thinking 7.5 is too big. So this is one game that we're going to go opposite on. All right, let's move on, and we'll talk about the Redskins hosting the aforementioned Jets, who beat the Cowboys earlier in the season and then beat the Giants last week as a slight dog. Can they go into Washington and win again as a slight underdog? Dwayne Haskins now for the rest of the year is going to be under center as the quarterback for the Redskins. I'm okay with that. I think, both offensive line, defensive line, Redskins are stronger than the Jets, and I think they're going to be able to win in the trenches. That's why I like Washington in the spot. But if you're just saying Darnold over Haskins, that's probably the selling point if you like the Jets.
Well, and that's exactly my point, is that I think Sam Darnold, yeah, he's had a couple of clunkers this year, but part of that is due to health, and part of that was he faced the New England Patriots. Washington's not going to pose that kind of a problem to the Jets. Last week, we saw what he was able to do against an anemic defense, and he did just fine. He wound up and won that game, was able to move the ball down the field. This passing attack for the Jets, it's one of those things where the receiving core is actually not that bad. It's just you don't get to hear about them because of an emphasis on Le'Veon Bell, because the quarterback situation has been a little bit volatile, a number of different injuries back there. But Sam Darnold is back on the mend now. He's now comfortable, and this is another opportunity to face weaker competition where he can prove what he's capable of. I think the Jets can win this one outright.
This line opened at 1 on Thursday. It moved to 2.5, and it has been stuck on 2.5 ever since. But a very tight matchup there between the Jets and the Redskins in Washington. All right, we're going to move along and talk about the next game, which is the Saints on the road as a favorite against Tampa after laying an absolute clunker last week. I mean, they look like a hot pile of trash, Ed, on offense. They scored 9 points against the Falcons, who have, really no pressure on the quarterback coming into that game, and they were getting to Breeze, sacking him, quarterback hits, quarterback pressures. I don't know what happened. Do you put a line through that and say that the Saints are going to bounce back? Because that was a really weird outcome.
Yeah, it was a weird outcome because on the one hand, had you gone into the game and I were to tell you that Atlanta was going to beat New Orleans, what did you think would happen? Probably that Matt Ryan would just outscore Drew Brees. And that, to me, would have made sense. But for Atlanta's defense, which has been non-existent essentially all year, to come in and sack Drew Brees as frequently as they did. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when Atlanta just manhandled Dak Prescott, taking him to the deck 7 or 8 times. And so I suppose one game a year, Atlanta's defense comes through and sacks the quarterback frequently. But if that's the case, then yeah, throw the game away. It doesn't matter very much. I mean, keep in mind, even though that loss was rather embarrassing for New Orleans, Michael Thomas still had 13 receptions out of 14 targets for 152 yards. Touchdown positive regression to the mean should be available to Michael Thomas with Drew Brees back in at quarterback. So Marshawn Lattimore is out, so that could mean more opportunities for Jameis Winston, but it could also mean more opportunities for the Saints, for somebody else to get a pick, maybe get a couple of takeaways defensively. So I think because of the key mistakes by Jameis Winston, the turnover-worthy throws by him, I think the Saints have a real opportunity to bounce back, and I think they can cover for it.
I know you like the over in the Baltimore-Houston game. This is the game that I like the over because I just have a feeling the Saints are going to just go off offensively. I looked it up. Since Sean Payton has been the head coach of the New Orleans Saints back in 2006, there's been just 4 times that the Saints have been held to single digits. The following game, they've scored at least 31 points in that next game. So expect them to put up points. And Tampa Bay is always going to get theirs as well. So that's the game I might look for an alternate total and buy that one up to maybe 10 points higher than that, maybe even go to 60.5 and think that they can get into the 60s. So I think the Saints will bounce back after that really questionable offensive performance last week. All right, let's go to Minnesota. And we have the Denver Broncos coming into town, a team that really doesn't get a chance too often to play in a dome, but the last 2 times they have played in a dome, they've covered, and they're getting 10.5 points going into Minnesota. This is a very big line.
Yeah, it really is. And first off, when you look at this Broncos offense, quarterback Brandon Allen really is the ultimate game manager. I don't expect him to have too many turnover-worthy throws in a game like this against maybe a so-so Minnesota defense. But as someone who believes that Joe Flacco was playing at an average level all year long, Brandon Allen is going to be one notch below that. So I don't know how Denver breaks 20 in a game like this. That means the Vikings need 30 or more to cover. And with completion percentage over expected and EPA per play, putting Kirk Cousins as the number 2 quarterback in all of football right now, I think the Vikings can cover this large spread.
I always think that the Broncos can hang in there because I love what I've seen from Courtland Sutton. I think he gets into the end zone. Right now, he is listed as an anytime touchdown scorer at plus 300. So you're getting 3-to-1 odds that he can catch one from Brandon Allen, and I think he will. Can they stay within 10.5? I think it's going to be right in that range. I'm going to say they will cover. 27-20 is the final that I'm going to have on this one. So Broncos and the over for me. All right, let's move on, and we've got a divisional matchup between the Falcons and the Panthers. Can Matt Ryan and the Falcons prove that last week was no fluke at all when they went in to New Orleans and beat the Saints? Now they have to do it again, facing another winning team in the Carolina Panthers. This line, 4.5. You know, you figure if the Saints would have blown the Falcons out last week, this would probably be 7.5, 8, 9. But because the Falcons look so good, this number is lower.
Ah, the joys of recency bias. You win one game, you look dominant in the process, and all of a sudden you think that the Atlanta Falcons are for real. I don't buy it. I really don't. I'm not a big defensive guy in general, but Atlanta's defense has given up a lot of points and yards. And while we talk about Christian McCaffrey a lot with this Panthers offense, I think DJ Moore should be a player to watch in this matchup. He's helped a backup quarterback hang some big numbers. Not necessarily consistent. They are 19th in pass success rate. But I'm trusting Dr. Chow that the foot injury for McCaffrey is not a big deal. It's more practice management than anything else. And so I do believe that there are enough weapons for the Panthers to be able to hang in a game where even if Atlanta does go off, and of course they have the weapons to do it, even if Atlanta is able to score, say, 21, 24, 27 points, I do think Carolina can keep up, and I think they can cover 4.5.
Well, two less weapons, of course, with Freeman and Hooper both suffering injuries in that game last week. To me, if Atlanta wins and covers, it's going to be like what happened last week, where Matt Ryan is just going to have to execute some long, thought-out drives, 6-7 minutes, try to keep it low scoring, and hope that their defense can keep them in the game like they did last week. So this is a game I'm staying away from. Not one of my favorite games of the week, but if I was to play a side, it would be Atlanta in the under. And again, that's recency. That's from what I saw last week, and see if they can continue to do that. All right, let's go to a team, the hottest team in the NFL as far as covering, Ed. That's the Miami Dolphins. Remember, they started out, got blown out by Baltimore week 1, blown out by Dallas. Everybody thought they would be 0-16 and maybe never cover a game. They've now won 2 straight. They've covered 5 in a row. And they come in back to Miami as a big underdog against the Bills, a team that earlier in the year, they were a double-digit underdog going to Buffalo and actually held the lead into the fourth quarter, and then they didn't cover because Buffalo's got like 3 touchdowns late. But Miami was terrible back then. They're not as bad as they were. So to me, this is a weird line because Miami still, despite winning a couple games, not getting much respect. A 6.5-point home dog.
Well, when you look at Buffalo's expected record, when you factor in points scored and points allowed, Buffalo has sort of been outperforming, their true record. And by that, I mean, really, it's more like they've been overblown a little bit. It's in large part because they're winning a lot of close games. But offensively, they haven't been able to do very much. Now, Miami hasn't been able to do very much either. But they've sort of been on the other side of things where their expected record is better than the actual record. So they were kind of due to win a couple of close games. And that's exactly what we're seeing. I've got a hot sports opinion for you, Dave. I want to know what you think about this.
Okay.
Ryan Fitzpatrick is better than Josh Allen. Ryan Fitzpatrick is better than Josh Allen, and I think that's why Miami covers. I think it's as simple as that. Yeah, Fitzpatrick is a little bit more volatile, but Josh Allen, I haven't seen a lot from him. He keeps trying to throw these deep balls, but his accuracy and deep targets just simply hasn't been there, and with completion percentage over expected, Fitzpatrick has the advantage. Yeah, Miami has a dreadful rushing attack, but it's forced them to use the passing game more, and I think it's been to their benefit. So I like Miami here.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the point where Miami has got hot a few weeks ago when Fitzpatrick took over late in the game against, I believe it was Washington, came back, got them almost to overtime, ended up missing that 2-point conversion. But, yeah, since Fitzpatrick's taken over, he has played quite well. We'll see if he can do it in this spot. Again, like you, I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins as the home dog. We're going to take a quick break, but want to remind you, if you want to play these games, you need to sign up for a FanDuel Sportsbook account. You can download the free app. And then once you sign up, make sure you use that promo code MOREWAYS25, because when you do that, you're going to get a risk-free bet up to $500. And on top of that, you're going to get a free $25 bet. Use it how you would like. You could even bet who is going to score the first touchdown of the game. That's something that we're going to talk about coming up. We'll also talk other props. And JJ Zachariason is going to help you set your FanDuel lineup, all that and more when we come back here on More Ways to Win. Stay tuned.
War of Will won the Preakness! Satsas qui s'en va, Satsas qui s'envole, Satsas qui va triompher dans le prix du Jockey Club.
Sometimes a trip to the casino is not in the cards.
You have gas, there's tolls, there's traffic, there's parking. And what is a resort fee? I think everybody wants to know what a resort fee is. I'd rather just stay and play at home.
With Betfair Casino, you can play anywhere in New Jersey. No long drives, no hassle.
You just can't beat the convenience.
I've downloaded the app. It's fun. It's quick. I can play anywhere in New Jersey.
Playing on Betfair Casino, I save on tolls, I save on time. It's great.
With over 400 casino games, you could be playing your favorite games in 3 simple steps. Step 1. Sign up at betfaircasino.com and get $10 free for joining. Step 2. Make your first deposit and we'll match it up to $2,500. Step 3. Join the thousands in New Jersey playing for real money online.
It doesn't matter, how much we're betting. It's just the excitement of it. The adrenaline starts to flow.
Join the fun today at betfaircasino.com. Try it free.
With 35 years at the forefront of sports technology, Stats provides next-generation sports content for basketball, baseball, football, soccer. And now, Stats is turning its sights to horse racing. RaceLens is the most in-depth product on the market. With innovative analytics powered by data from Equibase, it will change the way you follow horse racing. Stats RaceLens, bringing clarity to handicapping. Learn more at stats.com/RaceLens.
And welcome back to More Ways to Win. Yes, you need to get some money down on these games on the sports betting side. But if you like daily fantasy, we've got you covered as well. Go to FanDuel.com and get your lineup set. JJ Zachariason is going to help you right now with telling you which quarterbacks to consider today.
Yeah, I like Kyle Allen this week. I know that Atlanta's defense looked good against the Saints this past week, but over our larger sample size, they still rank 5th worst in pressure rate, 2nd worst in sack rate, and 4th worst in yards per attempt allowed. So I like Kyle Allen in a game that could be higher scoring. My number 2 value quarterback, Derek Carr. Now, you might look at the spread of this game and say, oh, Oakland's just going to run the football, and they probably will if they get a lead. Josh Jacobs is a good play, but Derek Carr, if they get a lead, is going to have something to do with it. He's going to throw for some touchdowns. So I like Derek Carr at his price point. My number 1 value, though, he's the most expensive quarterback that you can choose from, but it's Lamar Jackson. He scored 21 or more fantasy points in all but 1 contest this year. If you look at Houston, they've allowed 2.5 fantasy points above expectation to opposing quarterbacks this year. The Ravens have a high implied team total. There should be a lot of scoring in this game. I like Lamar Jackson a lot despite his high price tag.
All right, JJ, thanks very much. And make sure you sign up for the Sunday Million, where just a $9 entry fee can get you $1 million. Go to FanDuel.com for that. All right, let's go back to the sports betting side and talk about the funnest bet that is out there, and that is to say who is going to be the first one to score in those 1 o'clock Eastern games. The first person to get into the end zone off of the entire slate, and Christian McCaffrey is the favorite at 16-1. So, Ed, we need to consider, who scores quickly, which teams seem to pounce first, and obviously which player has the capability of getting into the end zone. Who do you think will be the first touchdown scorer today?
Well, my usual formula is which team is going to have, or which game rather, is going to have the most points. And so to me, I like Baltimore-Houston. so that makes sense. Of course, coin flip, that matters as well. But let's say Baltimore wins the coin toss, and rather they receive, rather. Then I think Lamar Jackson may be the best bet there at plus 2,800. Keep in mind that Houston, they're not the best when it comes to stopping the run, and Baltimore has been doing unbelievable things instead of, in terms of handing it off to Mark Ingram and then Jackson keeping it, or, sort of these fake handoffs that go in a number of different directions. I mean, they really are revolutionizing the ground game with quarterback design runs. I think Lamar Jackson makes the most sense here.
How about J.D. McKissick, 42-1 as a oddball pick of the day? That's where I'm going to go. But good luck. Anything can happen. If you can pick who the first touchdown scorer is going to be, you're going to get paid handsomely at the sportsbook.fanduel.com. All right, that's a fun prop bet, but let's go individually game by game now and start talking some player props here. And we'll go back to the first game that we talked about, and that is the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Houston Texans. Two quarterbacks can get it done both in the air and on the ground. Let's start with Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. His rushing yards here, can he get to 30 yards against this Baltimore defense? The total on his rushing yards, 29.5. Over or under?
I'm going to take over here because I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities for him to run. Yes, I know Houston would rather win this football game through the air, and they certainly have the receivers to do it. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a potential coverage sack that Baltimore might employ. That means Deshaun Watson gets to take off. And I wouldn't be surprised if, say, 2 rushing chunk plays, they get them to 30. So I'll say over.
This is a fun one as well. As you're watching the game, you have the entire 60 minutes because it only takes one play for this to happen. Can Watson get a ball to Hopkins over 22.5 yards? This is the longest completion for him as a receiver. So, there could be one play left in the game and the Texans are losing at the 23-yard line. You get the touchdown, you can cash this bet, or it can happen on the first play of the game as well. Will he get that reception?
High-scoring game, back and forth. Both teams are going to have chunk plays. I think both teams are going to have some sort of long touchdown through the air. And when it comes to Houston, who's the most reliable target? I would call it the best receiver in the game, DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going with over.
All right, let's go on the other side of the ball and talk about Lamar Jackson and the Ravens quarterback. This is a yes or no prop. Will he throw an interception in this game? Does Houston have a secondary that likes to pick off a lot of balls? Is he even going to be putting the ball in the air all that often? And will he keep it, accurate where he's not going to get picked off? What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar Jackson only throws the ball maybe, say, 15, 17 times for the entire contest. And if that's the case, I certainly trust him not to throw a pick. And, he also has receivers who I think are good at sort of corralling the football, hauling in, and not having something deflect off of them. And so I don't think Lamar Jackson is unlucky as far as that's concerned. I'm going to go with no.
Okay, no on that. And one way that he won't be intercepted is he handed it off to Mark Ingram. Can't intercept it when you're not throwing it. Let's talk about his rushing yards. Mark Ingram, the starting running back for the Ravens, 52.5 yards. Will he get that number?
I'm going to go with yes. I think Lamar Jackson is going to have many more rushing yards. I think he's pretty much going to be the guy as far as how this offense runs. But certainly Mark Ingram is going to help out as far as that's concerned. I'm not exactly expecting a big total out of him. I'm thinking more like 60 to 65 rushing yards for the entire day for him. And I still think Baltimore is going to score a lot of points. But 52.5, it's a relatively low number for an offense that, in general, loves to run the football and is incredibly successful doing it. So I'm going to go over, but not that much over.
And if you think it's going to be a high-scoring game, they're probably going to get it both in the air and on the ground. So Ed going over on Ingram, 52.5. All right, let's change to a different game. We're going to go Jacksonville at Indianapolis. This is the first time that Nick Foles has taken a snap in a game since week number 1 when he broke his collarbone. So now the question is, will he get a touchdown and a half? That's the total here on his passing touchdown. So really, will he get 2? I think he will. This is one of my favorite bets of the week, and I'm getting a little bit of juice there. You have to lay more on the no. Maybe some people think he's rusty or the Indy defense is too good. I think he's going to get at least a couple of touchdowns, so I'm saying yes. What about you?
I think when it comes to that Indianapolis defense, a lot of it has been put together through duct tape. And Frank Reich, one of the great coaches out there in the NFL, has had to do a heck of a lot just to sort of keep things upright. But at some point through the course of a grueling NFL season, things are naturally going to break down. Guys are going to eventually, play to the level that they are capable of, for an entire season. So I look at that and go, this may be an opportunity for Nick Foles to really feast on Indianapolis. And I don't think he's going to go off necessarily. But, yeah, I think he can get 2 passing touchdowns, no doubt about it. And also keep in mind, Jacksonville loves to run the football. Yeah, I know that. But they may be keying in on Leonard Fournette, and that may give Foles some additional opportunities. And so I expect him to get 2 or 3 here.
I'm with you. And, being his first game back, will they throw some shorter passes early on, just kind of get him warmed up? Because the next prop involves Leonard Fournette not rushing, but catching the ball. A guy that, is known for running, but can you throw some screens against this Colts defense today? 4.5 total receptions for Fournette. You think he'll catch 5 balls?
Well, it worked for Gardner Minshew as far as keeping Jacksonville going, was really the short game. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Foles does that. Foles is also able to throw the deep ball off of play action. I don't know how much we're going to see that in a game like this. But as far as receptions go, I'm going to go with the under. I kind of trust the Lions overall here. I think they're going to try and get the passing game going through other more reliable, more efficient receivers. I think Fournette is going to play the more standard running back kind of game. So I'm going to go with under.
All right, let's go to Jacoby Brissett, who is back after Hoyer couldn't get the job done last week against Miami. Brissett's going to try to get the job done here against Jacksonville. Longest completion for Jacoby Brissett, 32.5 yards. To me, that would be a little bit more easy to hit if he had T.Y. Hilton, who's not playing today. Who really is a deep threat on that team that's going to give him that long completion? I don't see it happening.
I think you're right. I think the way Indianapolis tries to attack this game is to shorten it, run the ball a little bit more with Marlon Mack, maybe even design a couple of things with Jacoby Brissett. I don't think this is a game where they're going to be trying to throw it very often. And even if they do, it's probably going to be shorter throws, say to a tight end, maybe even to Marlon Mack. Maybe yards after catch makes this interesting as far as a wager is concerned. Still more comfortable with the other. Yeah, under.
All right, we're going to move on to the Cowboys going to Detroit and playing the Lions. I'm asking you this question knowing what you're going to say because you think that Dallas is going to shred the Lions. So this would be a simple one. Dak Prescott, touchdown total in the air, passing touchdowns, 1.5.
Way over. Way over. I trust Dak Prescott here. Completion percentage over expected and EPA per play. Dak Prescott is the #1 quarterback in the it's quick digression, if I may, when it comes to Dak Prescott. He deserves to be in the MVP conversation. He really does. We put Christian McCaffrey in the MVP conversation, and yet Carolina and Dallas have essentially the same record. So why is it that Dak is not in the MVP conversation, yet compared with other quarterbacks, he's putting up phenomenal numbers? Christian McCaffrey is putting up phenomenal numbers compared with other running backs, but one is elite and the other one is not. I don't understand it. Definitely Dak is getting more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Amari Cooper may be getting 2 all by himself.
When I take a look at MVP, you just kind of visualize somebody else being in that role. And then when I look at the Baltimore Ravens and see Lamar Jackson, what he's done, and then say, what if Joe Flacco was still there? No chance that they're having this type of a season. If you take out Prescott and put in somebody else, would Dallas still be, slightly above 500? Maybe, maybe not. That's the way I look at it. I think that's why his odds aren't really as low as some of those other guys. But, yeah, you pointed it out. Statistically, he's having a very good season. And you're maybe going to cash an easy bet here on the over 1.5 on the passing touchdowns. But let's talk about Zeke. He's hit and miss so far this year. You look at the top rushers, Barkley and Zeke, those were the 2 big chalks to start the season. They're nowhere to be found as far as the top 3 rushers in the league this year. But on the props, his numbers are always still very high. Detroit's defense not outstanding. So we're going to talk rushing and receiving combined, 113.5 yards for Ezekiel Elliott. What do you think?
So one of the things that this offense has done that's different than, say, last year is Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, has made it a point not to throw it to Zeke nearly as often as they did last year. Throwing to running backs tends to be inefficient anyway, and even though they tried to force it to Zeke in the passing attack on that fourth down play against Minnesota last week, that's not really what the Cowboys do anymore. They tend to go to Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, Michael Gallup. That's how the Cowboys go. Now, as far as this game is concerned, what makes it interesting is I do believe the Cowboys get off to a big lead. I think they're going to blow out Detroit, and then Zeke will get his. And so I'm going to take the under here because I don't think he's going to get too many receiving yards and too many receiving opportunities, but I still think as a rusher, he will get to 100. This number is very, very close, but I'm expecting him to get about 105, 110 as far as rushing yards are concerned. He may not get a reception at all. I'm going to take the under, but I still think he has a fantastic game.
All right, and we don't want to leave out Washington and the New York Jets as well, but we'll just do one prop there. Let's talk about Sam Darnold, and can he hit 224.5 on the passing yards against the Redskins?
I'm going to go with over here in large part because I think it's Washington's offense that's going to be anemic, and I think Sam Darnold will have more than enough opportunities to reach that mark. It's not necessarily that I think this passing attack is going to get 300 or 350 necessarily, just because that's what they're going to do every single week. But I just think Washington will have a lot of 3-and-outs. They're going to have a lot of stalled drives, and that gives the ball right back to Sam Darnold. And so with, say, 15, 17, 18 drives at least, he'll have enough opportunities to get to 225.
All right, if you'd like to play these prop bets or any of the games on the slate today in the NFL or any sport for that matter, head on over to the FanDuel Sportsbook, or you can download the free FanDuel Sportsbook app. Sign up for an account using the promo code MOREWAYS25, and you'll get a risk-free bet up to $500. And on top of that, a free $25 bet. And you could bet it on the Super Bowl 52 rematch. That is the Patriots and the Eagles going at it here in a late game, 4:25 late start here for this East Coast game. The Eagles, they're banged up offensively. They are missing a lot of their key weapons, so they're a 4-point underdog at home, hosting the Patriots off of a bye. Look, Bill Belichick is outstanding without time to prepare, but given that time, they're 5-0 against the spread the last 5 years off of a bye. And I looked that up. 3 years ago, they lost to Seattle by 7. I'm like, well, that's not right, because how are they more than a 7-point dog? Somehow, 3 years ago, Ed, they were a 7.5-point underdog against the Seahawks in Seattle. So I said, oh, maybe Tom Brady wasn't playing. He was playing. I don't remember the Patriots ever getting 7.5, but they did. They lost by 7. They covered. That's 5 straight off the bye. Does that streak get snapped here? Can the Eagles pull off the upset?
Can the Eagles pull off the upset? I do think offensively they're going to do just enough to make this close. 4 points is really, really interesting. So I may have to sort of talk this out before making a decision. Don't see an impressive rebound for New England, almost to the point where I'm tempted to say, buy a point, buy 2 points perhaps, and just make this a little bit more interesting. But New England, they have an insane turnover differential right now at plus 17. That's a good 4 takeaways better than second place Pittsburgh coming into the week. So first off, that's going to regress. I don't see New England getting all kinds of takeaways against Philadelphia. In fact, you look at the Eagles' turnover differential, and they're sort of due to bounce back a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if Carson Wentz has a couple of short fields and is able to take advantage of it. The other thing that I think Philadelphia has, which is a major advantage, is what they're able to do in 2 tight end sets, specifically with Zach Ertz, who we all know is a great receiving tight end, but Dallas Goedert is coming through a good bit as well. And New England, yeah, it's a small sample size, but they're not great against tight ends. It's the long passing game where that secondary has looked absolutely elite, perhaps the best secondary in the last several years. But I think Philadelphia's short passing game will keep this close. And it sounds odd to say, but I think 4 points is just too big. I think New England can win this game, but it may be by a field goal.
Well, 76% of the money has been on New England, which is 24% on the Eagles. The way I look at it, the Eagles, are a good team. The Patriots have beat bad teams all year long, except they went to Buffalo, They didn't cover. They went to Baltimore. They didn't cover. So this is the third road game against an above-average team, and we're going to find out if they're for real or not. It's a big game because the #1 seed in the AFC is at stake. All right, so we've talked about pretty much all the early games. There's a few more late games that we'll talk about here. Patriots and the Eagles we just covered. What about the total here? 44.5. You know, we got two good quarterbacks, obviously. I think that this game comes down to defense. So Philadelphia missing two key wide receivers. Jordan Howard's now out. Sproles is out. So Miles Sanders, remember it's been that running back by rotation with three guys. Now Miles Sanders, he's going to have to carry the load here today. I think it's going to be a struggle offensively for both sides. I like the under. What about you?
In this game, the under is very much possible here. I mean, I've talked about it before, and you've even made fun of me for it, Dave Weaver. But I don't see Tom Brady as being this elite quarterback right now. I think he's very, very good. I think he's, say, 10th or 11th overall in football. But it's really more of a managerial thing for him more than anything else. And so if the Patriots are scoring, say, 22, 24 points, then Philadelphia probably loses by that field goal. And then all of a sudden you get to the under. So I look at that and go, I think the under makes a little bit more sense. But I think that total is fairly close because I think the Patriots will probably reliably get 21-24. But say if that Eagles defense, which has not been great all season long, gets a takeaway or two and gives Carson Wentz a short field, then all bets are off. But I think given sort of the narrative that you see with the spread and with the total, the Patriots win by a field goal, but perhaps in a lower scoring game than perhaps we would normally think of when we think of Carson Wentz and Tom Brady going after each other.
Well, remember the Patriots started off 8-0, then they lost to Baltimore and became 8-1. The other team that started off 8-0 in the NFC was the San Francisco 49ers, and then they lost to the Seahawks on Monday night, so now they are 8-1. Are they going to have a late season regression here and start to slide closer to 500, or are they going to bounce back and beat up on the Arizona Cardinals who are coming into town? This line is 10.5 for the Niners to get back on the winning track after that very excruciating loss last time out as it was going back and forth and into overtime, but they could not get the win. And to me, that's deflating and takes a little bit of the air out of you, and then all of a sudden you have the Cardinals coming into town. How motivated are they going to be in this spot?
Well, some teams may say that, but other teams might say, you know what, we won't be undefeated this year, so maybe the pressure is off as far as that's concerned. And I think also, these two teams, well, it was a Thursday night game. Arizona was at home. Now the Niners are going to be at home, and it's more of a full week. So I don't read too much into the previous contest. I think what matters more is that I think the Cardinals are starting to slip a little bit. They play the fastest pace in all of football, 24.79 seconds per play. They do pass it a good bit, but a lot of stalls or a lot of drives have stalled as of late the last few games for Kyler Murray and company. They like to utilize his legs a little bit more, and they're going to try and maintain the ground attack for Arizona, but I think the Niners are sort of due for a little bit of a bounce back at this point. In terms of the passing attack, it's been efficient. Not great, but very, very efficient. Passing defense has also been very efficient throughout the entire year. So, I think the Niners can cover 10.5.
I'm going to take the other side. I like the Cardinals to keep it within the 10.5. That's a key number. I mean, I like getting 10.5. If you're down 17, backdoor touchdown get you there. I'll take the Cardinals. Let's go to the biggest spread of the week. And who would have ever thought that the Oakland Raiders would be the biggest favorite of the week in the NFL on any given week? But as bad as Cincinnati has been, Raiders deserve to be this big of a favorite. They're 11.5-point chalk against the Bengals, who are coming into town, plus 470 on the Bengals, minus 600 on the Raiders. I mean, this looks like blowout city to me. The Bengals look worse and worse every week.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's not that I think the Raiders are going to score a ton of points. It's that the Bengals might get shut out. So this may be an opportunity to start Oakland's defense for daily fantasy or your general fantasy teams. But I look at this and go, they're going to go to Josh Jacobs early and often for the Oakland Raiders. And, the rushing attack has been very, very good. And Derek Carr throws a lot of short passes, but they seem to work. Even the way they utilize tight ends in Oakland, with Darren Waller especially. That's been incredibly effective. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where the Raiders win 17-3. Because you're putting a rookie quarterback in a situation where, in a sense, he's doomed to fail. There are no weapons for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. The defense hasn't been able to stop pretty much anybody. You saw what Baltimore did to them just a couple of weeks ago. That was a blowout. I just don't know what Cincinnati is able to do to keep this game close. And so, yeah, I think that big spread makes sense.
Be careful, Ed. You said last week that Cincy was going to get shut out, and you got the big red X. Our producers are very strict on catching things that we say. They lost 49-13. Basically, to me, that's like getting shut out. They didn't cover, and you still got made fun of on the red X. So I bet if even Cincinnati gets a field goal, they will consider that being wrong. So I'm on your side. I got your back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Our producers, yes, very benevolent in a lot of ways. But, boy, they do like to get their jabs in, don't they?
They are harsh. All right, that is all of the early games and all of the afternoon games. Still to come, we'll have the 8 p.m. game, and also we'll talk about that big matchup in Mexico City between the Chiefs and the Chargers. That's the Monday night game, and we'll get some more DFS help from J.J. Zacharyson. But right now, we want a horse racing winner. Joaquin Jaime, give us one.
We're coming with a pick that Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans will like. It's a horse named Lafitte's Fleet, a 2-year-old who is owned in part by Black Ship Racing. The colt is a first-time starter whose daddy, More Than Ready, has produced the most Breeders' Cup wins in history. And that includes Uni, who captured this year's TVG Breeders' Cup Mile.
A cavalry charge into the final furlong. Got Stormy and Uni. The two girls take over as they come to the final 16th. Uni to the front. Got Stormy back in the second. Without parole, takes third lane behind Uni in the mile.
For our folks in Indiana, Lafitte's Fleet will be making his debut in Sunday's 4th race at Churchill Downs, just across the border from the Hoosier State. A key angle in that horse's favor is that his trainer, Eddie Keneally, wins at 25% in sprint races, a very solid rate. So fire up your TVG account and make a wager on Lafitte's Fleet, the 9-horse in Sunday's 4th race at Churchill. If you don't have an account, it's easy to sign up for one at tvg.com. Use the promo code FALL, and you'll get a $200 risk-free bet on us. Again, it's Lafitte's Fleet in Churchill race number 4 on Sunday. Post time is 2:30 Eastern, right here on TVG.
They say less is more, but we believe more is more. That's why we built FanDuel Sportsbook with more ways to bet, more ways to fund your account, more ways to cash in, and more ways to cash out, with payouts delivered straight to your bank account in as little as 48 hours. You want more? You got it. Join today and get a risk-free bet worth up to $500. FanDuel Sportsbook. More ways to win.
The TVG Sunday Spotlight Race. Join us for the Betty Grable from Del Mar. Watch and wager on the weekend's best stakes races. The Sunday Spotlight on TVG.
Do you want to bet the next race and don't have a TVG account? Get the TVG mobile app and sign up. It's fun, easy, and it's TVG. I'll show you how it works. When you bet the horse that wins, you win money too. With the TVG app, select your horse, bet type, and wager amount. Place your bet and watch the race live. Download the app and sign up now, or go to TVG.com. Join now and get a risk-free bet up to $200. TVG, your best bet.
TVG Saturday. Top trotters and pacers compete in the TVG Free-for-All Championships and the Fall Final Fours Finals. Thrilling harness action from the Meadowlands. Saturday. Meadowlands, first post, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific.
Run Happy, he's 16-2. He's a beautiful horse. There's stamina on top and bottom, and he's stamping his horses with that. I think they look big and fast and like horses that'll go on and run a distance as well as short.
He was a fantastic racehorse. If he passes on his ability as a racehorse, I think he's a slam dunk to be a great sire. Very athletic looking and beautiful bodied horse as well.
Run Happy, standing at Claiborne Farm.
And welcome back to More Ways to Win. Getting a little bit closer to kickoff, not only to be making those sports bets, but also to set your FanDuel lineups at FanDuel.com. And to help us out, our DFS expert, J.J. Zacharyson, tells you which running backs to consider today.
Yeah, my number 3 value running back this week is someone who's stepping in for an injured Devontae Freeman, and that's Brian Hill. Last week, even with Devontae Freeman playing some snaps in that game before being injured, Brian Hill saw 64.5% of Atlanta's running back rushes. He had a 6% target share. Pretty strong numbers. And in this game, in a higher scoring game, he gets a Carolina defense that's allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I like Brian Hill. My number 2 value this week, Tevin Coleman. If you look at this San Francisco and Arizona game, San Francisco's a big favorite, which could favor Tevin Coleman seeing a little bit more volume than usual, and that's on top of Matt Breida being a little bit banged up. Since Tevin Coleman's return from injury in Week 5, he ranks 10th in the NFL in goal line rushes as well, so there's some touchdown upside for Tevin Coleman. I like him at his price point. But my number 1 value, I'm going to go back to Leonard Fournette. The main reason he's priced where he's priced is because he can't find the end zone. He's only scored once this year. But based on his yardage totals, and yards do correlate strongly to touchdowns, based on that yardage total, he should have more than 6 more touchdowns than he currently has. So there's positive touchdown regression coming for Leonard Fournette. He's seeing a ton of volume. He has 90% of Jacksonville's running back rushes, a 17% target share. Just regardless of the matchup, he has a high floor week in and week out. But if he finds the end zone, he's going to way overperform that current price tag.
Thank you, JJ. All right, get those lineups set. You can make $1 million today with just a $9 entry fee. Go to FanDuel.com and play that Sunday million. All right, let's talk sports betting now and get back to the game that's taking place later on tonight, right here in Los Angeles, right down the street. The LA Rams hosting the Bears, +6 if you like Chicago. Ed, remember when I was in Indiana, I flew through Chicago. So coming back on Friday night from Chicago to L.A., the whole plane was filled with Bears fans and Bears memorabilia. These guys are coming to L.A. There will be a good following for the road team. I've got top knowledge of that with that United Flight 499. But on the field, doesn't matter. They're going to have some fans in the crowd. The Bears +6. Trubisky has kept the TVs turned off this week.
Well, first off, as far as your flight is concerned, I hope they all brought a deep dish pizza with them because those were unbelievable. I've actually power ranked Chicago deep dish pizzas. I can share that later. As far as this game, as far as this game is concerned, don't look now, but Jared Goff is 2nd worst in all of football in completion percentage over expected combined with EPA per play, and that's in large part because he's getting pressured a lot. And this Chicago defensive line could generate a little bit of pressure to keep this a low-scoring game. So first off, my play here is go under because is going to score very much. And I picked on Mitch Trubisky a good bit. I don't think he's going to do very much against this Rams defense. So I do think this is a low-scoring game. But here's the bigger deal for me. If the Rams lose this game outright, being a nice favorite here, if the Rams lose this game outright, then I think it's time to panic. If you're with the Rams organization, because this is not a game with all of the offensive weapons you have, and enough of them are healthy. This is not a game you should be losing. Chicago really is struggling right now. They have real questions at quarterback and real questions about the future direction of the team in general. And they're going to be running the football a good bit. And so they're going to try and keep it a shorter game. So to me, the Rams should be able to cover this. If they don't, bad times in L.A., to say the least.
Well, this is the 2nd lowest total of the week. The Jets and the Redskins were in the high 30s, but this is almost getting to 39.5, sitting at 40, and you have to lay the 120 to play the under. So, I mean, what do you think? 13-10, or is it somehow going to get to over 40?
It could be something where it's 20-10, something like that. Again, I still have, questions in terms of what Jared Goff is able to do when he's pressured. But you think they're going to make enough offensive adjustments the way it works with Sean McVay. They do one thing, see the defense, and then adjust. I do think Matt Nagy's a great coach, but the offense tends to have the advantage with these sort of chess match-like adjustments. So I do expect sort of a 20-10 kind of final where the Bears are going to try and shorten the game. Jared Goff won't get too many opportunities, but I think he'll find his 2 to 3 touchdowns.
I have a question for you about Mitchell Trubisky. Are you prepared to take money out of your wallet, hard-earned American dollars, and put them on his arm that he is going to get 212.5 passing yards? That is the prop bet on Trubisky. Yes or no? Will he get that?
No, he will not get that. I don't think he's going to come anywhere close to 212.5. In large part because I think, A, they're going to run the ball and try and shorten the game. So I don't think you're going to see too many drives as far as this one is concerned. This is a Sunday night game, Sunday afternoon game out in Los Angeles. And I think the game will end early enough to where you'll still have your full Sunday evening out on the West Coast to do whatever else you'd like aside from football. But I don't think Trubisky's going to be slinging around very much. And also, this is a defense with the Rams where, they're going to be applying a lot of pressure on Trubisky. So it's probably just safer for him to hand it off even more so.
Maybe go down to Venice Beach and lift some weights. I saw you over there pumping some iron a couple of weeks back, Ed.
I didn't strain anything. That's the most important thing.
Muscle Beach. Speaking of muscle, Todd Gurley, a guy that can definitely pick up some yards getting through that line of scrimmage. Hit and miss. How is his health week to week? This seems like a number that he could obtain. 71.5 rushing yards. Yes or no?
I'm going to go with yes. He'll go over that, but not much more over that. And I don't even necessarily think it's going to be his rushing that does it. I think it's going to be more of his receiving.
Yeah, you get the receiving too.
Total. Yeah, I think it's the receiving that I think will put Todd Gurley over the top, not so much his ground game. And again, because Jared Goff will likely face a lot of pressure in a game like this, it may be short dump-offs and checkdowns that sort of keep Goff relatively protected. And that means Todd Gurley will have a few additional opportunities. And so, yeah, I think he can get this mark.
All right, let's move on to the Monday night game in Mexico City. What a great matchup here. Patrick Mahomes and Phillip Rivers go back to last year. Mahomes goes into L.A. week 1, beats the Chargers, high-scoring affair. And then Phillip Rivers goes into Arrowhead later on in the season and beats the Chiefs. So they split last year, but the loser in each of those games scored 28 points. I think this is going to be another fun one where these guys challenge each other and go back and forth. I like the over. It's the biggest of the week. 52.5. But let's talk the side first. The Chiefs are laying 4. This is a team that started off so hot. What are they right now? 6-4? I mean, they're really in need of a victory here. Can they get it against the Chargers?
Isn't it amazing that the Oakland Raiders are poised to take over first place in the AFC West? That's nuts. That's just nuts. But as far as this game is concerned, Chiefs are on the mend right now. The skill position guys, they look to be just fine for the most part. And I know we made a big deal about the sack on 3rd and 2 where the Chiefs could have ended it. But I think coaching decisions have really kept Kansas City from being an elite team as far as the AFC is concerned. They're not going for it on 4th down very often. And, yeah, you have to sort of take that number into context a little bit. But with the lack of 4th down attempts by Kansas City, if you have Pat Mahomes, you should be more aggressive as far as your play calling is concerned. Eric Fisher, the left tackle, he should be back for Kansas City, so they're going to trust that protection a good bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pat Mahomes throws more deep balls. And at some point, this Kansas City offense is due to score 40 to 50 points, and that may happen Monday night.
83% of the money on the spread coming in on the Chiefs. And as far as the over-under, 73% of the money on the over, 27% on the under. Let's talk some props here. Patrick Mahomes, passing touchdowns, 2.5. Last week, he ended up with 4, I believe, against Tennessee Titans, 3 or 4, and lost. So he hit that number. And then the weeks before that, including before he was injured, he was getting shut out with no touchdowns. But against the Chargers, will he get 2.5 passing touchdowns?
I think he will, and I think Tyreek Hill is going to be responsible for that because he's my number 1 wide receiver for the weekend. And Pat Mahomes will have a number of opportunities to score here. I think this will be a high-scoring game that Kansas City wins and covers at 4. So, yeah, I think Pat Mahomes to get 3 or 4, maybe even 5 passing touchdowns, I think that's pretty reliable.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill, since coming back from his injury, I looked it up from weeks 6 through 10, the most targeted quarterback in the league. So that is definitely the guy that Mahomes is going to be looking to get it to. I mean, obviously, he's going to have some other options as well. But I think I'm with you. I think he will get the 2.5. I love the over in that game. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth affair. Make sure when you make your bets, you do it using the FanDuel Sportsbook app or by going to sportsbook.fanduel.com. Make sure you sign up for that account using the promo code MOREWAYS25. And we're going to give you a risk-free bet up to $500 in site credit. And on top of that, you can also get a free $25 bet. Use the promo code MOREWAYS25 and sign up for that account, sportsbook.fanduel.com. You can bet maybe one of Ed's best bets. By the way, a little bit later on in the next hour, we'll give our best bet of the day. Maybe that's what you can bet your free $25 on. Coming up in this hour, we're going to have pro football doc, Dr. David Chow, joining us, and Egros from Dallas as well. And welcome in to FanDuel's More Ways to Win. Just 2 hours from kickoff. It's Week 11 in the NFL, and a huge matchup between two young quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson against Lamar Jackson, as the Texans come into Baltimore as a 5-point underdog. Can they cover against the red-hot Ravens coming off that win against the New England Patriots? And also, speaking of the Patriots, it's a rematch of Super Bowl 52. Tom Brady, not against Nick Foles this time, though, against Carson Wentz, as the Eagles are hosting the Patriots, home underdog, 4-point underdog. Talk about that game. And also, speaking of Foles, where is he? He's on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They paid him big bucks to see if he can bring that Super Bowl MVP status to Jacksonville. What happened? Week 1, he breaks his collarbone. Well, guess what? He is back. He is healthy. Minshew mania, for now, is over, and it's time to see if Nick Foles can take this team to the promised land and get a good second half of the season going into Indianapolis as a road dog. I like them. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And the guy that's going to help me talk about these games, joining me live from Dallas, Texas, Edward Egros. Hey, Ed.
How's it going, Dave?
Doing great. Every minute that we get closer to kickoff, I'm 45 years old. I feel like I'm 21, and it's the first time I stepped into a sports book to make a bet. I just love Sunday mornings.
Sunday mornings are wonderful, and especially at this point of the Sunday morning where we start to get the injury reports finalized. We know who the inactives and inactives are. Maybe there's that added little nugget that puts your bet over the edge if you're a little bit indecisive, because oftentimes if I'm indecisive about a game, I literally wait until the last minute. And it's one of the two extremes, right? It's either at the very beginning of the week or at the very end of the week, nowhere in between.
And speaking of the actives and inactives, always nice to have Dr. David Chow joining us. About 40 after the hour, we'll talk to the pro football doc and get his thoughts on some of the key injuries and some of the guys that are actually coming back off of injuries today. All right, let's go to two teams that have been relatively healthy throughout the year, and that is the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore, with a win today and a loss from the Patriots, would take over the number 1 seed in the AFC. So a very important game here in Baltimore. Can Lamar Jackson keep it going? It's been an amazing run so far through the first 10 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it really has. And what Lamar Jackson is able to do virtually against any defense, including an elite one in New England, is not just run the ball, but run the ball in an almost revolutionary kind of way with quarterback design runs, with Mark Ingram doing a number of different things. And also Lamar Jackson, for a quarterback, really for anybody, but especially as a quarterback, he's been incredibly tough to take down. The pirouettes he's done, the moves he's made to evade tacklers, it's been unbelievable. And he's not absorbing too many hard hits. And so that makes you believe that Lamar Jackson will be able to do this at an elite level for the entire season. But as far as this matchup is concerned, biggest question for me is who's going to slow down? Because I think both offenses will be able to do whatever they want. When I look at success rates, Baltimore's rushing success rate is number 1. Houston's is number 10. That's not too shabby. And then you look at the passing attack, Baltimore is 6th, but Houston is 2nd. And to me, the biggest difference is that I trust the receivers for Houston a little bit more than I trust the receivers for Baltimore. And so that's why I think Houston can win this game outright.
Now, this line, an hour ago, when we were talking about it, was at 5. It has gone back down to 4.5. The total's at 51.5. I've always got the FanDuel Sportsbook app ready to go. I have the alternate total here, Ed. I know you like the over, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you could go as high as 79.5 and get 27-1 odds on that. Anywhere in between. Give me a number, and I'll tell you what your odds would be. What's your prediction of the final?
My final here would probably be 35-31 Houston.
Okay, so 66 points. Over 65.5, you're getting plus 460. So there you go. There's a good bet for you.
Feels good.
Plus 460 over 65.5. All right, moving onwards here as we're going to talk about the Super Bowl 52 matchup between the Eagles and the Patriots. Oh, no, let's start in Indianapolis because, hey, if they're going to fly me all the way to Indy a couple of days ago, that's the game I want to talk about. I don't like the Colts. They lost to the Dolphins last week. I know it was with Hoyer, the bankroll destroyer, and they're getting Brissett back. But look, this is the Jacksonville team that to me, getting Foles back is more important for Jacksonville than the Colts getting Brissett back. I think Nick Foles is going to add a new dimension. Minshew did great, but Foles can stretch the field a little bit more. Westbrook looks to be getting more healthy. DJ Chark has been phenomenal, leading rookie you got Marquise Brown and him as far as the two best rookie receivers we've seen this year, but I give the nod to Chark, Fournette. To me, too many offensive weapons that Foles has to beat the Colts today. I like the Jags.
I completely agree with you, Dave. I think when you look at these two teams, they are very similar as far as the makeup is concerned. Marlon Mack, an important centerpiece for that offense for Indianapolis, but he's not nearly as successful when T.Y. Hilton isn't there and a defense doesn't trust the passing attack with Jacoby Brissett or really anybody, as far as quarterback is concerned for Indianapolis. But for Jacksonville, I would disagree that I don't think Nick Foles will add too much more. It may be short throws that puts Jacksonville in the win column here, and it may not even be to Leonard Fournette. I think it's really D.D. Westbrook who's going to be the guy who sort of takes over this football game. So to me, Jacksonville wins this game outright with shorter throws. Indianapolis, again, when T.Y. Hilton is not there, they're just outright anemic. And then you add to that Paris Campbell not being there. Jack Doyle's health is a bit of a question mark at this point. You add all of that up, and I go, there's not much left offensively for Indianapolis, and I think Jacksonville just wins outright by default as far as that's concerned.
I'm going to do what you did with that alternate spread on the total and play the alternate spread on the Jaguars. I think they'll win by a touchdown. So if you take Jacksonville minus 6.5, instead of getting the minus 110 or plus 100 on the plus 2.5, you're getting plus 280 that they win by 6.5. That's the way I'm going to bet this game. I like Jacksonville a lot. And I like a couple of dogs this week, and another one is even bigger than that. How about a 7.5-point underdog, the Detroit Lions hosting your Dallas Cowboys, who are coming off of that loss, that brutal loss against the Vikings. Can they bounce back and go to Detroit and get the win? They're laying 7.5 points. If you're playing them just straight up on the money line, minus 340. How would you bet this game, Ed?
Okay, so you said in the last hour, because the Cowboys lost to the Jets several weeks ago, that the Cowboys cannot be relied upon to win any game for the most part. Well, here's the deal with that Jets game. As much as I can excuse it, the Cowboys were without their two starting tackles in Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith. Both of them are elite. They also had a bunch of other offensive problems. And so, other offensive injuries, two key receivers. Pretty much everybody was banged up at one point or another. And then they were resorting to the ground game a lot with Ezekiel Elliott. And that's not really how this offense is supposed to go. Yeah, I know Ezekiel Elliott, gets all this money, but for the Cowboys to be successful, they need to throw the football. Now everybody is healthy for the Cowboys offensively for the most part. They are much better. And I know Jason Garrett made a couple of coaching snafus last week in that loss to Minnesota. But these are games where when everyone is healthy offensively, you can rely upon Jason Garrett to win that football game and win it handily. So not only do I think the Cowboys can cover this large spread, I'm going to bump up the spread to where I think the Cowboys can win by 20.
20? Hold on.
20.
Let me get this back because that is a big number.
Pick up the phone.
Come on.
Scroll up.
Yeah, I'm scrolling right now because they're going to win by 20 points. I'm finding this. All right, more wagers on Dallas. We're going to go alternate spread. Minus 19.5 would get you I don't even know if it's going to go that. It does. Plus 300. So you're getting, you're getting 3-1 that they win by 20. You can even go further. You can go to minus 32.5 at plus 1,100 if you wanted to take it that far. I'm not as convinced as you that their offensive line is as healthy as you think it is. 3 out of their 5 starters missed some practice time earlier in the week. I think they still have some holes there that, yes, Jeff Driscoll can run through. Watch this guy's legs. He's going to run it, and he's going to pass it. All right, moving on. That's it for the Cowboys and the Lions. I think, actually, I'm going to take a little bit of the money line as well. I think they can pull off the upset and win it. But let's go to Washington, where the New York Jets, fresh off of that win last week in the Meadowlands against the Giants, now go to Washington and take on the Redskins. Another similar spot. I think the Jets were exactly this last week, plus 2.5. Same thing that they are here. Can they make it back-to-back wins as a slight dog?
I love the Jets in this one. I think they're going to win this one outright. And that's in part because I think one of the fun debates in all of football right now is which team is the worst in all of pro football.
Bengals.
And I would make an argument that it's Washington, with all the problems that they have. And now you're putting a rookie quarterback in a situation where he's almost doomed to fail. And look, I like Dwayne Haskins. I think he can have a great pro career, but he is not in a great position right now. And also with Bill Callahan, the interim head coach, he wants to run the football a lot. And so Haskins is not going to be asked to do very much. They're going to try and run, with a backfield that, maybe about as old as the Model T Ford at this point. But it's unfortunate that they're going to try and run the ball and win the game that way. First off, if you're only concerned about running the football, 2.5 is way too big of a spread for anybody. And especially if you're trying to shorten the game, then 2.5 is just too much. So take the Jets to cover as far as that's concerned. But I think Sam Darnold is going to get a couple of touchdowns through the air, or at least one. In a low-scoring game, I trust the Jets.
All right, I'm going the other side. I like Washington in this spot, but a low-scoring affair you would think between those two teams. Not the case against the two teams we're going to talk about right now. That's the New Orleans Saints going into Tampa Bay against the league's worst passing defense. That's right, the 32nd ranked Tampa Bay Bucks. Drew Brees could have an absolute field day here, throwing to Michael Thomas. Jared Cook is going to get his catches as well. Are the Saints going to cover this 4.5-point road spread?
I think they will, and I'm expecting a higher scoring game as well, not just because I think Drew Brees will be slinging it a good bit to Michael Thomas and to Jared Cook. By the way, Jared Cook is my number 5 tight end for this weekend, so I expect him to do good things there. Michael Thomas should be fine, but I look at Jameis Winston, and he is very much a feast or famine kind of quarterback. He could very well throw for 3 touchdowns in a game like this, but he also throws a number fumbles the ball at random times. And so the Saints will have a number of short fields. And I think Drew Brees can capitalize off of that because the short game is just so effective. So, yeah, I think the Saints can cover that.
I agree, and I think it will be a high-scoring affair. By the way, Jared Cook is my number 1 tight end this week. I am starting him. Absolutely. I think he'll have a big game. All right, moving on from one high-scoring affair to a game that might not be so high-scoring. Although I do believe that Denver's going to surprise some people and put some points on the board. Going to Minnesota, Joe Flacco no longer the starter. Brandon Allen is going to be carrying the load there for the Denver Broncos, trying to put up some points against the Vikings. Total here, only 40.5. And guess what's happened here, Ed? It's a big difference here. If you like the Vikings, punch this in. It was 10.5 an hour ago. Just went under 10 now to 9.5.
I would definitely jump on that. I'm there. I like the Vikings at 10.5, maybe not as confidently slow because 10.5 is a large spread, but now at 9.5, goodness gracious, I think Minnesota can easily cover that. And that's a large part because I think when you look at Denver's offense throughout the entire season, Joe Flacco played about average, of average quality. Good bit of yards, no doubt about it. Very smart, cerebral quarterback, no doubt about it. But not very efficient. They weren't scoring a lot of points. And so now you're putting in Brandon Allen. I don't know how you score more because of that. So I'm expecting Denver to get about 14 to 17 points. And yeah, you have great receivers with Denver, sure, but they're still not scoring very much. So if Denver's getting 14 to 17, the question is, can Minnesota get 24, 27, depending upon the margin? I think they can. Kirk Cousins, number 2 in the entire NFL in completion percentage over expected plus EPA per play. He's playing at an elite level right now. And Dalvin Cook, with that offensive line, is also running the ball very, very well. So I think Minnesota can do just about what it wants offensively. So, yeah, I think they can cover 9.5.
I'm going to take the Broncos and give me some money on Cortland Sutton. Anytime touchdown score, plus 290. I think he's going to haul one in today in Minnesota. All right, let's move on. Matt Ryan, so good last week, controlling the ball, keeping the ball out of Drew Brees' hands, and even when Brees had it, the Atlanta defense was all over him. So the Falcons, off of an upset win last week, come in and play the Panthers here on the road again as an underdog. Can they make it back-to-back road wins?
Well, the problem with Atlanta is, yeah, they had that one great game, no doubt about it, but they have not really had anything else. I mean, that's what made last week so surprising. And so I'd rather look at the first half of the season as far as Atlanta is concerned than say just one game where everything went right defensively for Atlanta and everything went wrong for Drew Brees in terms of getting sacked, in terms of Michael Thomas not finding the end zone, having turnovers, all of those things. I think the larger sample size suggests that Atlanta, with those 2 wins, is probably more deserving of having so many losses than, say, getting that one great victory over in New Orleans. But when it comes to Carolina, Kyle Allen, he has been a little bit inconsistent, but he hasn't been terrible. And having Christian McCaffrey certainly helps. Having that outlet to throw to has been wonderful. And I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have the best performance of any running back this weekend. But they have other weapons as well. Greg Olsen, the tight end. You have receivers who are capable of, catching the ball in short outlet passes. So I look at this and go, yeah, Carolina can cover 4.5. This may be, a highly efficient offensive performance by them.
Not in love personally with this game, so I'll let you play that one. And by the way, McCaffrey is the highest priced running back, as you would expect, on FanDuel today. All right, one more early game to talk about. We're going to Miami, where the Buffalo Bills are coming to town. Earlier this season, Miami went to Buffalo, was a huge underdog, and actually held the lead in that game into the fourth quarter before unraveling late. Buffalo ended up pulling away and getting the win. But, how good has the Dolphins been of late? Everybody was thinking, wow, this team's going to go 0-16, maybe 1-15. They're tanking. Hey, they've won 2 straight. Don't look now. They've covered in 5 straight. They come home here, and they are now a touchdown underdog. It was 6.5 an hour ago. Now they're getting the full 7.
Yeah, they're getting the full 7 here. And when I look at Buffalo's offense, they're not really scoring more than 21 points any one given game. Yeah, they've gone over that number, once or twice this season, but this offense should have been expected to do a lot more, and it really hasn't. And so can Miami get to 14? Can they get to more than that? Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been playing decent football with completion percentage over expected. He actually has a bit of an advantage as far as his quarterback matchup is concerned. Miami does have a dreadful rushing attack, no doubt about it, but it's forced them to use the passing game more, and it's actually been a blessing in disguise. Buffalo seems to be stubborn, giving Josh Allen too many opportunities to throw the deep ball. He has not had a high completion percentage for passes that are 21-plus yards beyond the line of scrimmage. So I like the home dog here.
I'm with you, especially now that we're getting 7 points instead of the 6.5. That's the time to punch it in if you like the Dolphins. All right, that's all the early games. Now it's time to figure out who is going to be the first one to score in these early games. That's right. You can bet that right now at sportsbook.fanduel.com. The first touchdown scorer of the 1 p.m. Eastern time games, Christian McCaffrey, is the favorite at 16-1, but maybe we can think a little bit outside the box here, Ed, and come up with a big long shot play.
Long shot play. I'm still going to stay with someone on the board here, and the way that I always approach it is I look at the game where I think we're going to see the most points, and to me that's going to be the Baltimore-Houston game, and then I look at, the coin flip certainly affects things, but who are the likeliest touchdown scorers here? And to me, in the Baltimore-Houston game, it all starts with Lamar Jackson. I would not be surprised if he rushes for a 60, 65-yard touchdown right away because he's just so evasive. Like, he eludes just about anybody and everybody. The guy is just incredible as far as that's concerned. So, yeah, with a couple of chunk plays, he can get to the end zone and do it in quick order.
I'm going off the board. Kerryon Johnson hurt in Detroit. J.D. McKissic going to get the ball. We need Jeff Driscoll to get them down inside the 5 and have McKissic get that first touchdown. Am I talking crazy?
You really hate the Cowboys right now. I don't understand. Like, they have a great offense, and like the defense isn't bad either. Just have a lot of close losses.
I like the Lions, so I'm going to go heavy on McKissic and some prop bets today. If you'd like to make this wager, you can do it by going to sportsbook.fanduel.com and downloading the free FanDuel Sportsbook app. When you do that, make sure you enter the promo code MOREWAYS25, and that is going to put you in line for a free $25 bet and a risk-free bet up to $500. If you lose that first bet, you'll be refunded in site credit. So get it done. Sign up for that account at MoreWays25. All right, let's move on and start talking about the late afternoon games, and we'll begin with that Super Bowl 52 rematch. Can Tom Brady go into Philadelphia and bounce back after losing for the first time prior to the bye week when they couldn't get the job done at Baltimore? The betting public certainly thinks so. About 75% of the money coming in on New England. They're laying 4 on the road.
Yeah, when it comes to this game, for Philadelphia, I do believe that Doug Peterson is creative enough to come up with a game plan to go up against the New England secondary that has been just unbelievable over these last few years. Part of the issue here is, secondary is great, but in terms of stopping the run and maybe stopping shorter throws, New England maybe hasn't been as effective, maybe not as consistent. And to me, with Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, 2 tight end sets, I think Philadelphia has an opportunity to keep this game close. And so it sounds odd to say, but I think a 4-point spread is just a little bit too big.
The question is New England for real? They have beat up on some very bad teams. You can't dispute that. Most of their wins coming against, sub-500 teams. And their real challenges when they go to Buffalo, they won, but they didn't cover. When they go to Baltimore, they lost, and clearly they didn't cover. And now they're going to Philadelphia. The Eagles haven't been as good as I think people expected them to be this year, but still a good team. So to me, it's still a real challenge for the Patriots to prove that they can go out and do it on the road against a good team, and that's what they're going to have to do today. I think Philadelphia keeps it close. I will take the 4 points. Another game that I think is going to be closer than a lot of people think is the Cardinals going into San Francisco, a 10.5-point underdog. San Fran looked so good all year long. It's not look like they looked bad against Seattle, but they blew a 10-point lead that they had early and made some mistakes. Jimmy G certainly missed a lot of passes, and his receivers were dropping a lot of balls as well. So, are there some holes right now in this San Francisco offense that Arizona might be able? This did the same thing that the Denver game did, Ed. It just went from 10.5 to 9.5. If you like San Fran, that's a good thing for you. But can they bounce back, or is Arizona going to maybe expose them a little bit like Seattle did?
Well, I liked San Fran earlier when the spread was a little bit wider, and so now I like them even more so at 9.5. I think too many people are looking at that previous matchup on a Thursday night. I mean, look, home teams do a lot better on Thursday night than they do, the rest of the week, on Sunday, on Monday night, whatever it might be. And I think that's exactly what we saw in the first meeting between Arizona and San Francisco. Now things have turned. I think the pressure gets off of San Francisco after suffering that first loss. Yeah, they're coming off that short week with that tough defeat to Seattle in overtime. But the passing defense is still really, really good. Kyler Murray has been struggling a little bit as of late. The Cardinals in general have been struggling a little bit as of late. Passing defense good. Jimmy G has been decent enough to sort of pull away from certain teams in certain situations. I think they can cover 9.5.
All right, divisional opponent. It's a big number to me. I will say that Arizona can keep this within that 9.5-point range. So a lot of the big favorites I don't like today, but the one that I'm willing to lay the 11.5 on is the Oakland Raiders. I just, every time I see the Bengals play week in and week out, they keep getting worse. So I don't know how they can be worse than last week when they got beat 49-13, but can they keep it, in your estimation, within that 12.5-point margin?
I believe that's another spread adjustment there. Another point being added to the total there for the Raiders now at 12.5. Yeah, I think they can take care of this. I know I said last week that Cincinnati was on shutout alert, and it didn't exactly happen. But that was in large part because I think Baltimore just scored so many points on so many drives that Cincinnati just by default had enough opportunities to get to the end zone once, at least also tack on a field goal. But in a situation like this, the Raiders are going to be resorting to Josh Jacobs a good bit and shortening this game, trying to get it done as soon as possible. And I do believe Josh Jacobs will be able to find the end zone. I do believe Derek Carr's shorter throws, how he utilizes tight ends, I think that's going to keep this a relatively short game. But I do believe they are going to win by a couple of touchdowns and probably say a 21-7 kind of affair.
I am with you on that one. Still to come here on More Ways to Win. We'll talk about the late Sunday game. We'll talk about the Monday game. And make sure you get your wagers down. Do you have a FanDuel Sportsbook account? If you don't, sign up for one right now. Make sure you use that promo code MOREWAYS25. They're going to give you a free $25 bet and a risk-free bet up to $500 in site credit. When we return here on More Ways to Win, we've got JJ Zachariason helping you out with your wide receivers and your FanDuel lineups, and the pro football doc himself, Dr. David Chow, joins us to talk about the key injuries this week. Stay tuned.
For us handicappers, there's only ever been one way to play. Sure, I can bet my horse, but I can't lock my odds. But there is another way. Betfair has changed the game with more ways to win. With Betfair, I can lock my odds, and I can bet during the race. You've got to try this out. Smart is the new lucky. Claim your $200 welcome bonus. Bet now at Betfair.com.
They say less is more, but we believe more is more. That's why we built FanDuel Sportsbook with more ways to bet, more ways to fund your account, more ways to cash in, and more ways to cash out, with payouts delivered straight to your bank account in as little as 48 hours. You want more? You got it. Join today and get a risk-free bet worth up to $500. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win. They say less is more, but we believe more is more. That's why we built FanDuel Sportsbook with more ways to bet, more ways to fund your account, more ways to cash in, and more ways to cash out, with payouts delivered straight to your bank account in as little as 48 hours. You want more? You got it. Join today and get a risk-free bet worth up to $500. FanDuel Sportsbook, more ways to win.
I think the bonus is really interesting. Mr. McInvale, as usual, is thinking outside the box, doing a wonderful job promoting his horse. Buyers will really appreciate having an opportunity like that to come back and run their horses at these top tracks and earn that bonus.
It's a wonderful incentive both for people in the market and people that own these horses, and I mean, what a great bonus it would be for anybody that wins, and I think it's wonderful.
Run happy, standing at Claiborne Farm.
And welcome back to More Ways to Win. We've been talking plenty about sports betting so far on the show, but remember, you can also get your daily fantasy lineup set at FanDuel.com. And joining us live from Charlotte, North Carolina, JJ Zachariason to talk about which wide receivers to use. Hey, JJ.
My number 3 value wide receiver this week is Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm going back to Hollywood Brown. You look at this matchup, Houston's allowed the second most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers when adjusted for strength of opponent. Hollywood Brown has seen at least 17% of Baltimore's targets in every single game that he's played this year. And Houston ranks 8th worst in air yards allowed, which means they could allow a big play to happen. And we know that Hollywood Brown is a big play wide receiver. My number 2 value, it's John Brown. He's going up against a Miami secondary that hasn't been very good this season. They've also allowed the second highest average depth of target this year, and we know that John Brown's a big play wide receiver as well. And of all wide receivers in the NFL, 2 of them have seen 50 or more receiving yards in every single game played this season. One of them, Michael Thomas, the other, John Brown. He's a great value at under $6,000. The number 1 value this week, though, I'm going to go with DJ Moore. This is a game that has a fairly high over-under. DJ Moore is only priced where he's priced because he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 3. But despite that, over his last 5 games, he's seen at least a 24% target share in that Carolina Panthers offense. Volume should be going his way, and it's against a beatable Atlanta secondary. I love DJ Moore at $6,000.
Yes, I love DJ Moore as well. Thank you very much for your expert advice there, JJ, and helping us set our DFS lineups. Make sure you get those lineups set as you can play in that Sunday Million, a $9 entry fee, and you could win $1 million. All right, I'm going to walk over here and teach you something on our touch screen about how to play 2 things here. The same game parlay. Let's move over here, and I'm going to give you just a brief tutorial on that, and then I also want to take a look at some division odds coming up as well. But the game that I've been talking about all week is the Jags and the Colts, because I went to Indiana, the Blue Chip Casino Hotel and Spa, checked out the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's awesome, by the way. Michigan City, Indiana, shout out. But let's talk about that game. We're going to go hit the tab that says more wagers there. And this box right here, it says same game parlay, new. That's where you want to click. Once you click on the same game parlay, now you have all of the different options that you can choose from. I like the Jags, so I'm going to take them. I think they're going to win. I'll take the money line. And I actually think that Nick Foles is going to get this ball into the end zone a lot. So I'm also going to take the over. So I already have the Jags in the over. Well, that's something you could do in a regular parlay. But the same game parlay allows you to add an anytime touchdown score. Let's say that I think Leonard Fournette is going to score. Yes, Marlon Mack is going to score. Yes, let's say, where's Nick Foles? Is he on there anywhere? 15-1 that he sneaks one in. Nick Foles, I'll say he scores. So right now I have the Jacksonville Jaguars to win, over 42.5. Leonard Fournette scores. Marlon Mack scores. Nick Foles scores. That's got to be worth some decent money. I'm going to bet, let's see, even $10 will make me $1,840. That seems pretty fun. I'm only risking $10 to win $1,800. I know the key to that is going to be Foles winning or getting into the end zone. But hey, at those odds, why not? All right, one other thing that I want to do here, and that Ed can come in and help me out with this. Let's talk divisional odds. Who is going to win each division? So let's go to the NFL. We're going to go to Team Futures. If you click on that tab, you can have the overall winner. That's the Super Bowl 54. You have the winning conference and the winning division. So let's click on winning division. And I want to talk about the division I was just talking about. This is interesting. This is different. This is which division. Let's bring that in for this. Which division wins Super Bowl 54? So the favorite right now is AFC East, because that is, of course, where the Patriots are going to come from. But Ed, another one here, AFC South, Texans, Colts, maybe Jacksonville gets hot late, plus 900. Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? And obviously that would lead you to which division is going to win it.
Well, my dark horse at the start of the year, they were the Baltimore Ravens, with Lamar Jackson, who I think was going to take a major step forward. And I don't want to toot my own horn here. I would never, ever do that, Dave.
No.
But I think Baltimore is in a great spot right now. Wouldn't be surprised that they finish with the 1 seed in the AFC. And like I mentioned in the previous hour, you need a first-round bye to make it to the Super Bowl for the most part. And so who has that opportunity in the AFC? The Patriots, the Texans, the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens have a great shot, and they come out of the AFC North.
Okay, so I found what it was that I'm looking for here. So I have it clicked right now on Team Futures under the champion. So this is all things champion. But you can go conferences, divisions, will teams make the playoffs, different props. So if we click on division, Team Futures divisions, now we can go division by division. The Patriots minus 6,000. Okay, that's happening. The Ravens minus 1,000. Steelers second choice at plus 900. Okay, this is the division that I'm interested in. The AFC South. Houston Texans right now are 6-3. So they have the advantage. But they're minus 190. The Colts are 5-4. The Tennessee Titans, who are on a bye, are 5-5. And then you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 4-5, plus 1,200. Let's just say, if I'm right today, that Jacksonville beats Indianapolis. They're 5-5. Indy's 5-5, Tennessee's 5-5, and if Houston loses to Baltimore, which the odds say that they're going to, they're 6-4. So now I have a 12-1 team in the Jacksonville Jaguars who are going to be one game out of the division after week number 11. I mean, talk me off of this, but that seems pretty big to be able to get 12-1 on that. For instance, I mean, the Steelers are less than that. They're only plus 900, and if Baltimore wins today, they're 3 games out.
Well, I still like the Texans here. I did like the Colts for a long time, but again, I think the duct tape is starting to tear off. Just too many injuries for the Colts, which is unfortunate because I think the infrastructure is probably better there than with any other team in the AFC South. The Jaguars, I know the odds are tempting, but I trust Deshaun Watson. I think he wins this game against Baltimore. So that will certainly help the Texans' chances. And they probably have the most impressive wins of anybody in that division. The tougher schedule certainly has something to do with it, but they've been coming through at the same time. And Nick Foles coming back will help the Jaguars, but I don't know if it's going to help it enough. And I don't know if they have quite the weapons that Houston has with DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills. I think Houston's just too loaded right now.
So 190 doesn't really seem like that big of a number to you. You're willing to lay that?
Absolutely.
All right, I've relocated back to the big screen here where we can see that the Rams are now even a bigger favorite than they were an hour ago when they were a 6-point favorite against the Bears. Now, 6.5 points. The Bears a plus 235 if you think they somehow can pull off the upset going to Los Angeles. What do you think is going to happen in this game, Ed?
Well, first off, I think if the Rams lose to a Bears team where Mitch Trubisky is really struggling, then I think it is time to panic in Los Angeles, in large part because the Rams have invested so much in so few players and perhaps in inefficient situations like with Todd Gurley. They don't have too many opportunities to supplement, say, the offensive line. So these are the kinds of games that the Rams really do have to win. I think they will. I think Mitch Trubisky's problems are for real, and I think they're long-lasting. But as far as Jared Goff is concerned, he has not been playing nearly as well, in part because he's been pressured a good bit more. But this is the kind of game that he really does need to win. So I do think the Rams can cover this 6.5, probably win by a touchdown and a half. But I also think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Wouldn't be surprised if, say, the final is 20-10, something like that. So I love the under much more than, say, the score.
Did I mention that there are just plane loads of Bears fans flying to L.A. for this game?
Lovely. Now, there is a big difference between, say, the Chargers' home field advantage, quote unquote, and the Rams' home field advantage. I've been to a Rams home game, haven't been fortunate enough to go to a Chargers home game yet. But Rams fans, they are vocal, they are loud, and I think they tend to play well at the Coliseum. And so I don't know why a lot of Bears fans are going to come into Los Angeles and just sort of, shake Jared Goff's confidence. I don't think it's going to matter very much.
Well, for one, to get out of the 20-degree weather that I was in Chicago a couple of days ago and come to California where it's 90 degrees today, a little bit later on. For that game, it's the late game. It'll probably be in the mid-70s, but beautiful weather for football. That's the Bears and the Rams. So, the Rams have that home field edge. But the Chargers, technically the home team in this matchup against the Chiefs, but this is a neutral site game as they'll be playing Monday night in Mexico City. This should be a high-scoring affair. If you go back to what happened last year, the losing team in the two matchups ended up with 28 points. 4 touchdowns was not enough to win those games. So which quarterback is going to outduel the other, Patrick Mahomes or Phillip Rivers?
I'm going to trust Pat Mahomes here. I think there are some question marks in terms of how much longer Phillip Rivers can play at a high level. Certainly having tight end Hunter Henry helps, and so I think for the most part the Chargers will be able to keep up. So I do love the over total in this game. But as far as Pat Mahomes I think he is capable of scoring 40, 45, maybe even 50 points against this Chargers defense. Getting the left tackle Eric Fisher is going to help a lot. I think they're going to trust pass protection a good bit more, and I think Tyreek Hill is going to have a phenomenal weekend. I think he's going to have the best performance of any wide receiver in all of the NFL for this Week 11, and so he'll find the end zone a couple of times. He may get a couple of monster receptions, perhaps also aided by yards after catch. Combine that with the ground game. Wouldn't be surprised if Pat Mahomes throws it to the running back, and he's able to get some chunk plays. And so I think Kansas City is going to score in a number of different ways to where they get to, say, 40, 45 points. And the Chargers, though I think they'll do well offensively, it's going to be hard to keep up with that. So I like the Chiefs here.
I'll go with you. 45-31 Kansas City over the L.A. Chargers. All right, we've covered all the games. Now it's the part of the show where Dr. Chow is going to join us to talk about some players that are returning from injury that we need to know about. Dr. David Chow, Pro Football Doc, former head doctor of the Chargers, and now you can follow him on Twitter at Pro Football Doc and go to the website profootballdoc.com and get some very fabulous information. And part of that he's going to be sharing with us here this morning. Good morning, Dr. Chow. Let's start with Nick Foles. He has not played since week 1 with that collarbone injury. Gardner Minshew was carrying the load for weeks and doing well, but it's finally time. Nick Foles got paid big money to come to Jacksonville. Is he 100% ready to go? What do we expect from Nick Foles today?
Physically, with the left collarbone fracture from week 1, he's 100% ready to go. The question is rust, right? I mean, this is his first game in a while here and around other teammates. But medically, I have no issues. He will be 100%.
And let's talk about rust. Being, a doctor in the league for 16, 17 years, is that a real thing? I mean, players need a week, 2 weeks. I mean, how long does that rust stay on them?
Well, it depends on the player. Some players don't need much time. Some players need more. And the rust, there are 2 factors with the rust. First of all, there's the mental reps that you need and the acclimation to your teammates and running certain plays and the repetition of doing something again and again. And then there's the rust in terms of physical rust. At the start of seasons, we all know that there's acclimation injuries in terms of muscle, soft tissue injuries, hamstring pulls, or in Nick Foles' case, I'm not expecting a lot of physical rust because of the left collarbone. He's been able to throw for 4-6 weeks or more. So I'm not seeing a lot of physical rust for this game. It's more about mental reps and playing with his new teammates.
That's true, because this is a team that he has, a couple of snaps with before he got hurt in that very first game. Valid point there. Let's talk about a quarterback who does have a lot of experience this year, a much shorter layoff, per se, for Jacoby Brissett, who hasn't missed all that much time. And as far as the injuries that we've seen, and some of the severe ones to Foles and to Patrick Mahomes, is it a little bit more of a non-severe injury that Jacoby Brissett is now coming back from?
Yeah, it was a mild grade 1 MCL. That's what we said in game and at the website, and that's what it is. And he didn't play against Miami, not because the Colts were looking past the Dolphins, but obviously they shouldn't look past the Dolphins. They lost to them, but they were looking forward to this series of 3 AFC South games that starts today against the Jaguars here. So that's what they're looking forward to. I am less concerned about Jacoby Brissett's MCL sprain, and he is going to wear a brace on his front leg, which he usually does. I'm less concerned about his injury than the injuries to his top 3 wide receivers. I mean, T.Y. Hilton is out with the calf. Devin Funchess is still not back from the clavicle and the hand fracture on Paris Campbell. So he's missing his top 3 wide receiver targets, and I think that's the bigger health concern there.
And I think Jack Doyle even missed the practice earlier. How important is it when you look on a Wednesday and a player is not suiting up for a practice? Does that mean a whole lot to you?
Not necessarily if it's a one and done like Jack Doyle's. And you also have to know what it is. Sometimes it's just rest, and sometimes it's good to know, like, for example, if the Colts defensive install was on Wednesday and their offense install was on Thursday and Jack Doyle got Wednesday off, it's kind of a who cares.
Yeah, I mean, he looks to be ready to go, but the wide receiver's not the case. All right, let's talk about the Jets running back, Le'Veon Bell. This is a guy that really has never been on the injury report throughout most of the year, but what's going on with him this week?
He's got a few things: illness, ribs, knee soreness. It's just second half of the season, right? It's football. And, not to go back on it, but this is kind of what Le'Veon Bell held out for, right? The wear and tear of football, and he wanted to get paid before he had more wear and tear on his body and injury issues. And so he's always played through, so I'm confident that he will play through. But at this point in the season, very few players are fully healthy, and 85% might be a good day.
All right, Dr. Chow, always appreciate the insight that only you can bring us. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want more of that, check him out on Twitter at ProFootballDoc, and you can also go to his website. I signed up. You should as well. It's ProFootballDoc.com. He also has a team injury index where you can look at each individual team offensively, defensively, and he gives them a grade anywhere from A to F. I haven't seen you give anybody an F so far, Dr. Chow.
I try not to give anyone an F because an F really means the GM's not doing his job, right? I mean, to start a game with an F, I mean, you got to like bring in other people. So it's very hard to give someone an F unless it's just catastrophic injuries all of a sudden and no time to react to sign people up.
I think D+ is the worst that I've seen. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, check him out, Pro Football Doc. All right, well, speaking of Le'Veon Bell, we'll bring Ed back in here and talk a prop about his rushing yards this week going into Washington. A little bit dinged up. Total here for the Le'Veon Bell prop, 58.5. Over or under?
My concern with Le'Veon Bell is he seems to be an inefficient runner, perhaps running east and west a little bit more than north and south. Per Next Gen Stats, he's one of the lesser efficient runners in all of the National Football League. And it's kind of been that way consistently throughout the year. This may be another situation where, A, the Jets just don't have too many drives because it's going to be a relatively short game against Washington. And B, with that inefficiency, I'm going to go with under.
Let's go back to that Monday night game and a guy that you mentioned was going to have a huge game. But this is a large number for Tyreek Hill, 96.5 receiving yards. We've seen even throughout the year the really elite receivers, 79.5, 85 maybe. I mean, this is pushing 100. This is a big number.
It is a big number, and I think Tyreek Hill can make it because I think he's going to be the #1 receiver in football for the entire weekend. Definitely Pat Mahomes is going to be distributing the football a good bit, no doubt about it. There are going to be a number of targets, a number of weapons utilized against this Chargers defense. But I think through chunk plays, through Tyreek Hill perhaps getting a lot of yards after catch, I do think he can get to 97.
All right, let's talk best bets here. We're winding down. Just a couple of minutes left in the show, Ed. Give me one, maybe even two best bets or a way that we can make some money today. Talk to me.
Well, we've talked so much about this Chiefs offense. Why not we continue the party? I think they are very much capable of scoring 40, 45, maybe even 50 points in a game like this. And so for them to get 29, yeah, I'm definitely taking the over here.
So you don't even want to worry about what the Chargers are going to do and have to rely on them in case it's 45-0 and play the over in general. You'll just take the Chiefs total. Smart.
Yeah, I would do that. I mean, I think I would also take the overall game total because I think Hunter Henry, the tight end for the Chargers, I think they'll be able to stay in this game. But it may very well be something where they rely on the ground game a little bit more and they're just not as efficient. And then the Chiefs score with a couple of more drives, win this game 45-31. I do love that score, so I'm taking the over in a number of different ways. But I think the easiest place to get the freest money, so to speak, would be with the over total for the Chiefs.
I support your best bet, and I know you're going to support mine as well because we both like the Jacksonville Jaguars today to go into Indianapolis and beat the Colts. That is my best bet, and I don't even need the plus 2.5. I'll take them on the money line. Jacksonville plus 118 as my best bet. If you want to make it a two-team parlay to the Saints-Bucks over the 50.5. So that's it for this week 11. More ways to win. Best of luck on your wagers coming up when you go to the FanDuel Sportsbook at the Meadowlands. Now you can go to Indiana as well. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.